who's also been counselor to congressional investigations, John Flannery. Good evening to both of you. John, have you ever seen an opening argument quite like the way the Democrats began today?
Oh, it was powerful. And in fact, I kept thinking, going back to my Jesuitical training, of Aristotle has two books on logic and argument in the rhetoric. The first one is To Use Logic, which was the first part of Raskin's speech. But the second book that he wrote was about how to use the emotion of people to communicate to them the significance of something. And he did both. He gave a first-class constitutional scholar's argument, but he also intertwined it with the facts so it would be hard to deny. And then he took it personal, like you and I have both served on the Senate. So we've been in these hallways when there weren't crowds charging down there willing to hurt or kill or worse, take over the government. And he brought it home to his family and how anybody could hear that and not personalize it for how terrible the offense. And any senator who would vote to acquit would ally himself with the notion of an autocracy, not a democracy. It is impossible in my mind for any responsible public office holder to vote for acquittal and not to be against our basic form of government. And that's the thing that kept coming. And when you were just interviewing with Senator Padilla, I had the feeling that though he wasn't there, it was as if he felt it. He held this communication with the people. The silence in the room, I think, took the hard facts and took the emotion and blended them together and said, this cannot stand. We cannot have a person like this affirmed by us by acquitting him and risk the whirlwind of him coming back. The center does not hold unless we stop this kind of conduct.
And you mentioned what comes through in the video. I want to play a little bit more of this trial evidence. Take a look.
Sure.
My youngest daughter, Tabitha, was there with me on Wednesday, January 6th. The sound of pounding on the door like a battering ram. The most haunting sound I ever heard, and I will never forget it. The kids hiding under the desk, placing what they thought were their final texts. She said, "Dad, I don't want to come back to the Capitol." People died that day. This cannot be the future of America. We cannot have presidents inciting and mobilizing mob violence against our government.
John?
Well, it's moving, as I said, and we're a nation that, I have a red tie on, and when I was putting it on, I get kidded about the bow tie. All I could think of was the blood that people spilled, so we'd have the right to vote. And these guys would supplant the right to vote of the millions of people who voted, no matter what their color or their origin or socioeconomic background. And they would come in and replace it because they want this amoral man to lead America. I can't imagine anything more base and a greater failure of the oath of office under the 14th Amendment and common sense and the laws outside the Congress than they would support this man still. It's terrible, and it's a shame and a disgrace, and I think in the midterms we'll deal with it if we don't deal with it during this trial. But the important thing about this trial is to get the message out about what happened. Whether or not we convict this person, we have to send out the message of what this crime was all about.
Yeah, what happened and who's accountable. And Emily, I was getting at that with specific questioning of the senator because it's not often that about 100 senators sit there for hours together. Certainly not quietly to take in the evidence. We know a lot from our own reporting about the different information diets that they have, just as people across the country have. But this isn't about who you like to get your news from or which sources you find have different interesting analysis. This was all documentary footage. Again, I'm going to play a little bit more, I believe we have, of some of that chanting and some of what happened for your response that was played as evidence today. One more piece of that.